The sky above Earth was no longer dark and peaceful. It was red, burning with the glow of thousands of alien ships that hovered in orbit, hiding the stars. People across every continent looked up and saw the same terrible sight. These were not explorers or messengers, they were invaders. The Galactic Dominion, a powerful alien empire known for destroying worlds, had come to Earth. They did not offer peace or friendship. Instead, they sent one message that was broadcast across every screen, radio, and satellite: surrender or be erased. The message was cold and final. Panic swept across the planet. World leaders argued on how to respond. Some wanted to negotiate, but most demanded to fight. Earth's defense systems were activated, and human ships were launched to intercept the enemy. But the first battles ended in disaster. Human fighters were torn apart in seconds. Cities like New York, Tokyo, and Berlin were attacked from orbit. Alien energy weapons melted steel, glass, and concrete without ever touching the ground. It was like magic, but it was war. Earth's forces were crushed, their technology no match for what the Dominion brought. It felt like the end. But in a deep, secret base under the Himalayan mountains, something else had been waiting, something Earth had built in silence and darkness. It was known as Project Echo. The heart of this project was a strange power core discovered on Mars years ago, pulsing with unknown energy. No one could fully understand it, but Earth's top minds had built a ship around it, the first of its kind. The ship was called Liberty's Edge. Unlike any human vessel, it moved without fuel, responded like a living thing, and had weapons no one had ever tested. Only one person had trained with it and survived, Captain Jason Halla, a combat pilot. With a reputation for being fearless and stubborn, Jason had flown in every major human conflict and survived things that should have killed him. He was the kind of man people followed even when they were afraid. When the call came, he was ready. He stood before the ship, its blue glow lighting the mountain hangar like a rising star. Around him, technicians rushed to prepare for launch. General Morgan approached and handed him a simple data pad. "You're Earth's last chance," the general said. Jason didn't answer right away. He stared at the ship, then up at the sky, imagining the enemy waiting out there. He nodded. "Let's make them regret ever coming here." Moments later, the mountain split open as Liberty's Edge blasted into the sky. It soared through the clouds, breaking through the atmosphere like a spear of light. Jason gripped the controls. The ship felt alive, responding to his thoughts and instincts faster than any fighter he had ever flown. Alarms echoed through the control centers across the world as Jason's ship made contact with the enemy fleet. What happened next stunned both sides. Liberty's Edge moved too fast to track, weaving between Dominion ships and blasting them apart. Human satellites watched as 1, then 3, then 10 enemy ships exploded in bright fireballs. The balance had shifted, if only slightly. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had something that Dominion couldn't predict. Jason didn't speak much as he flew, focused and calm, but deep inside, rage burned. He had seen what the Dominion had done. Friends lost. Cities destroyed. This wasn't just a mission, it was personal. He pushed the ship harder, testing its limits, breaking rules of physics. Dominion ships tried to lock on, but their weapons missed again and again. Jason's ship responded faster than anything they had ever seen. As the first wave of the enemy fell, a strange silence came over the battlefield. And then, something unexpected happened. From deep space, a single golden ship appeared. Massive, beautiful, and silent, it hovered at the edge of the battlefield. It didn't fire. It didn't move. It just watched. Jason slowed down and waited. Suddenly, a new message came through, but it wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. "Human pilot, we wish to speak." The voice was calm, not robotic like the last one. It was female, rich and strange. Jason hesitated. It could be a trap. But something in his gut told him it was different. He opened the communication line. A tall alien woman appeared on the screen. She had silver hair, glowing eyes, and wore shining armor made of something that looked like crystal. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes seemed curious. "I am Queen Siraxa," she said. "No human has lasted this long against us. You are ... interesting." Jason didn't smile. "Glad you're enjoying the show," he said flatly. She nodded. "You fight with passion. Rare. I wish to meet." Jason's eyes narrowed. "Why?" She tilted her head. "Because your ship sings with old power, and because you are not like the others." Jason stared at the screen for a long moment. The fate of Earth hung in the air. He made a choice. "All right," he said. "Let's talk." And with that, he changed course and set a path for the golden ship, flying into the unknown, not with weapons raised, but with questions and a strange feeling that this war had just taken a turn no one expected. Jason guided Liberty's Edge toward the golden alien ship, unsure what would happen next. It hovered quietly, glowing like a piece of the sun, and the closer he got, the more his ship's systems started reacting. Lights blinked, strange signals passed through the core, and a low hum filled the cockpit, like the ship itself recognized the other vessel. As he reached docking distance, a shimmering tunnel of energy formed between them, leading into the alien ship. Jason tightened his gloves, adjusted his flight suit, and stepped into the unknown. Inside, everything was glowing, smooth, and alive. The walls pulsed gently, like they were breathing. Floating lights guided him down a long hallway where strange flowers hovered in midair, slowly turning like they were watching him. He kept his steps steady, hands close to his sidearm, alert but calm. At the end of the hallway, two tall alien guards waited, both silent, wearing armor of gold and black, eyes hidden behind masks. They turned and walked ahead, leading him into a wide chamber that sparkled with color. There, standing in the center, was Queen Siraxa. She looked exactly like she did on the screen, tall, graceful, with glowing skin and silver hair that moved slightly as if caught in a breeze that wasn't there. She wore a long cloak that shimmered like starlight and had no weapons visible. But she didn't need any. Her presence was powerful enough. She watched him quietly as he stepped forward, her expression unreadable, then finally spoke. "You are not what I expected," she said softly. Jason replied without hesitation, "I get that a lot." She raised a slight smile. "You fight well, not just with skill, but with fire. Your people do not surrender. Most species cry for peace when we arrive, but your kind, you fight like you're already dead." Jason's eyes narrowed. "Because we have nowhere else to go. This planet is our home. We don't bow. We don't kneel. We stand even when we're broken." The Queen stepped closer, her eyes glowing brighter. "I believe you. That is why I asked for this meeting. I have lived through many wars, watched many planets fall, but I have never seen one rise back after a single day of defeat. You interest me, Jason Hawley." He crossed his arms. "Is that why you called me here? Curiosity?" "No," she answered, her tone deeper now. "I feel something in you and in that ship you fly. There is ancient power within it, a song only few can hear. We believe that ship was built around a piece of something far older than any of us, something from the first war of the stars. That kind of power should not exist. And yet you wield it." Jason didn't fully understand the ship either. The core found on Mars had never been explained. Some believed it was a weapon, others a gift. But whatever it was, it had bonded with him. It moved like it knew him. He said nothing. Siraxa studied. Then slowly extended her hand, her fingers glowing faintly. You are fierce, clever, and you carry ancient fire. I offer a union. Our kinds may survive this galaxy better if we stand together. Jason blinked, unsure. A union? Yes, she said simply. A joining of power, of blood, of purpose. He laughed nervously. Wait, was that a proposal? Her lips curved into a soft smile. Yes, I accept. Jason's jaw dropped. Hold on, I didn't ask you to marry me. You implied. She said calmly. I was being sarcastic. And yet, she said with amusement, I accept. Jason stared at her, speechless. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he sighed and rubbed his forehead. This has been the strangest day of my life. She stepped forward. Do not mock what could save your world. A bond between us could change the future. It would show the galaxy that the Dominion and humanity can share power instead of destroying one another. Jason frowned, unsure if she was serious or playing some strange political game. He didn't trust her fully, but something inside told him this moment was important. More than just words. Something had shifted. Suddenly, a loud signal echoed through the chamber. A voice crackled through the air, angry and sharp. Enemy ship approaching, human signature. Jason's heart jumped. Earth had sent ships. Probably. Thinking he had been captured or worse. Saraxa turned to a glowing console and narrowed her eyes. Your people are reacting too fast. They are preparing to fire. Jason stepped forward. Tell them to wait. I need to talk to them. She opened a communication channel, and Jason's face appeared across Earth's defense systems. He tried to explain quickly, this isn't what it looks like. She's not attacking. We're talking. Kind of. But Earth's generals didn't trust it. Jason was too close to enemy lines. They believed it was a trap. Orders were given. Weapons locked on his ship. Missiles launched. Jason jumped back into Liberty's Edge just in time, guiding it away from the golden vessel, dodging the missiles and laser fire that now filled space. He wasn't just dodging Dominion weapons now, he was dodging Earth's own. Back and forth he flew, trying to avoid getting killed by either side. Through it all, Saraxa followed in her own ship, keeping up with him, not firing, but defending him from both human and alien attacks. The situation had spiraled out of control. What had started as a strange meeting was now a war zone again. Jason flew low over Earth's surface, opening all channels, yelling into the noise. Stop firing. We need to talk. I have the Queen here. She's not attacking. This isn't what it looks like. Silence answered him for a moment. Then, a deep voice came through, the voice of General Morgan. Jason, what have you done? Jason glanced at the alien queen beside him, her expression calm despite the chaos. I'm not sure, he answered, breathing hard, but I think I just got engaged to the enemy. Jason walked through the strange alien halls of the golden ship, following silent guards toward the Queen's private chamber. Everything inside the ship felt alive. Walls shifted with soft light, air flowed like it had a mind of its own, and tiny glowing creatures floated near the ceiling like living stars. The quiet made every footstep echo louder than it should have. Jason stayed alert, one hand near his sidearm, though he knew it would likely be useless here. The guards stopped before a door that opened without a sound. Inside was a wide chamber filled with floating lights, long purple vines wrapped around columns of white stone, and air that smelled like something between rain and fire. At the center stood Queen Saraxa, watching him with calm, glowing eyes. She wore no crown, no weapons, only a long cloak of soft golden fabric and silver armor shaped like flowing water. Her presence was powerful, even without saying a word. Jason stepped forward but didn't speak first. She did. You came back. That is rare. He gave a half smile. Well, I was almost blown out of the sky by my own people. I figured I should at least hear what you have to say before they try again. She tilted her head slightly. Earth is fearful. That is natural. But you are different. You walk into the fire instead of running from it. Jason shrugged. Somebody has, too. And you still haven't answered my question. Why me? Why talk now? She walked slowly around him, her steps silent. Because you are not just a soldier. You think. You question. And your ship? The energy in it speaks an old song. My kind once knew that power, long ago, before we became conquerors. Jason frowned. You're saying you used to be peaceful? She looked away. Not peaceful, but different. We were explorers, not tyrants. Then the old kings died and power changed hands. The dominion grew from ambition, not wisdom. She paused. You reminded me of what we used to be. Jason raised an eyebrow. By shooting down your warships? A tiny smile touched her lips. By standing when most kneel. It's a rare trait. He studied her, still unsure what game she was playing. So what now? You want a truce? She stepped closer. I want more than a truce. I want a future. Not just for my people or yours, but something new. Something that breaks the cycle of war. Jason's eyes narrowed. And you think I can help you do that? She nodded. You have the strength of a leader and the spark of the old power in your ship. A bond between us would show the galaxy that even the oldest enemies can unite. Jason stared at her. You're serious about that marriage thing, aren't you? She didn't laugh. In my culture, such a bond is not only personal, it's political. It changes everything. Jason stepped back. But I never proposed. That was sarcasm. A joke. And yet I accepted, she said calmly, because I saw truth behind it. Jason threw up his hands. I don't even know how your people date. Her tone stayed soft. You defend your people with your life. That is courtship enough in my eyes. Jason groaned. This is insane. She stepped forward again, close enough that he could see faint lines of glowing energy across her skin. Perhaps. But sometimes change comes from the strangest paths. There was a pause. Jason's thoughts raced. He wanted to say no. But a voice in the back of his mind whispered that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't madness, it was an opening. A path forward that didn't involve more cities burning. What happens if I say yes? He asked quietly. Then Earth becomes my ally, she answered. And I turn my armies toward peace, not conquest. Jason looked down, then up at her. And if I say no? Her eyes dimmed slightly. Then I continue this war. But it would be disappointing. Jason swallowed. Hard. He had flown through battles, lost friends, nearly died more times than he could count. Now he was being asked to change the course of the galaxy with a single answer. His voice was quiet when he spoke again. Let's say I'm considering it. Her smile returned, faint but real. That is all I ask. Before he could say more, an alarm rang through the ship. A voice called out in the alien tongue. Siraxa turned sharply toward the nearest console, hands glowing as she activated the screen. Jason read enough symbols to know something was wrong. She looked at him. Your people are about to fire again. They think I've taken you hostage. Jason cursed. Then we need to get out of here. Now. She nodded, already moving. Come with me. I'll escort you back. Together, they ran through the golden halls, guards stepping aside as the Queen and the human moved as one. Outside, Liberty's Edge powered up, responding to Jason's presence instantly. He jumped into the cockpit while Siraxa entered her own smaller ship beside his. Together, they blasted away from the larger vessel just as Earth's missiles struck it. The ship shook but did not fall. Syrax's voice echoed over the comms. "Your people are as stubborn as you." Jason replied with a dry laugh. "It runs in the family." They flew side by side toward Earth, chased by the fire of fear and misunderstanding. And as they moved, Jason realized something strange had started between them. Not just an alliance, not just a negotiation, but a shift in everything. He didn't know yet if it would end in peace or fire, but for the first time since the war began, he had hope. Even if it came wearing armor, glowing eyes, and a wedding vow he never meant to make. As Liberty's Edge and the Queen's ship flew together toward Earth, tension built across every human command center. Leaders on the ground believed Jason had been turned or captured. To them, the sight of a Dominion ship flying close beside Earth's last war hero looked like betrayal. Without warning, orders were given to launch. Defense missiles flew through the sky, laser cannons turned upward, and Earth's fleet scrambled to intercept. Jason's eyes went wide when warning signals flashed across his cockpit. Missiles locked onto him not from the enemy, but from Hom. "Earth," he shouted through the comms, begging for someone to listen. "Stand down. This is Captain Hale. I've got the Queen with me. She's not attacking. This is a peaceful approach." But panic ruled over trust. The missiles kept coming. Jason had no choice but to dive. He twisted Liberty's Edge through the storm of weapons, dodging Earth's own fire with movements no other human pilot could make. Behind him, Queen Syrax's ship followed in perfect sync, not firing, not fleeing, only protecting. Her ships. Shields flared as a missile struck close, but she didn't break formation. Jason flew low over Earth's surface, pulling into a sharp arc that sent clouds swirling behind him. He opened every channel he could, trying to make anyone understand. His voice cracked with frustration. "You're shooting at your own people. This isn't a trick. She came here to talk." Meanwhile, in Earth's command bunker, General Morgan stood watching the radar with a clenched jaw. He didn't trust aliens. He had watched cities fall under their fire, had seen families wiped out in a second. To him, this looked like a ploy trick to get Earth to lower its guard. But there were others in the room now, younger officers, scientists and diplomats who had heard Jason's voice. They weren't so sure. One of them, a communications officer named Leon, turned to the general. "Sir, he's not lying. Look at the pattern. He's shielding the alien ship, not the other way around. If he was captured, he'd be dead already." The general hesitated, then slammed his fist against the console. "Fine, hold fire. But I want every gun aimed at them the moment they land." With permission finally granted, Jason brought Liberty's Edge down onto a desert airstrip, far from any city. The Queen's ship landed beside him. Dust swirled as the engines powered down. Soldiers surrounded both ships, weapons drawn. Jason stepped out first, hands raised, helmet off, showing his face to every drone and camera watching from around the world. Behind him, the golden ramp of Syrax's ship lowered, and the Queen stepped out slowly, tall and calm, her cloak billowing. Behind her, gasps echoed among the soldiers. No one had ever seen one of the Dominion's rulers up close. She didn't flinch under the dozens of rifles pointed at her. Her voice was steady. "I come not to fight, but to understand." For now, the silence that followed felt like it stretched across the sky. Finally, Jason stepped between her and the line of guns. She came to talk. "You wanted proof? Here I am." Standing beside her, not dead, not controlled. "I flew her here." The officers weren't convinced, but the people watching around the world began to see something different. News feeds exploded with images. The feared Queen standing on Earth's soil, guarded not by her soldiers, but by Jason. Commentators argued, Civilians debated, and slowly public pressure began to grow. Maybe there was a chance, however small, that this could be more than war. But trust couldn't be earned with just words. Earth's leaders, nervous and bitter, told Jason they wanted more than a speech. If the Queen wanted peace, she would have to prove it with blood. A test. They asked her to fight beside human soldiers in a real battle. If she risked her life alongside humans, maybe they'd believe her. Jason was furious when he heard it. But Siraxa didn't hesitate. She agreed. "If it shows your people that I mean what I say, I will stand with you," she said, looking Jason in the eyes. "But if I fall, the war will return and it will never end." Jason nodded, jaw tight. "Then let's make sure you don't fall." The mission came quickly. A Dominion command ship had broken from Sirax's control, loyal to the old ways. Now orbiting the edge of Mars, it was planning a final strike against Earth. Jason and Siraxa were sent with a small mixed team human and alien to stop it. The Queen wore sleek battle armor this time, silver and red, glowing softly with hidden energy. Jason wore his flight suit, patched with scars from earlier fights. They launched together, flying toward the edge of war once again. As they approached the rogue ship, it became clear they had walked into a trap. The Dominion traders had expected this move. Enemy ships swarmed their small group, cutting down half the escort in minutes. Jason twisted Liberty's edge through. Fire, pushing the ship harder than ever, shields flaring, guns blazing. Siraxa fought on the front lines, her hands glowing with strange energy, forming blades of light. Inside the enemy ship, they fought side by side, clearing corridor after corridor, bodies falling around them. At one point, a Dominion warrior lunged at Jason, driving a blade deep into his side. He cried out and dropped to one knee. The Queen screamed raw and furious. She stepped forward, lifting her hand, and fire burst from her palm. The enemy soldier was burned to ash. She knelt beside Jason, pressing glowing fingers to his wound. "You bleed for your people," she whispered. "And now I bleed for yours." Jason coughed and smiled weakly. "That's romantic." Together, despite the pain, they fought to the ship's core. Jason planted the charges while Siraxa covered him, her energy blasts keeping enemies at bay. The explosion ripped the rogue ship apart. The two of them barely made it back to the shuttle before fire consumed the corridors. As the wreckage floated behind them in space, Earth and the Dominion fleet watched through their eyes. In fire and blood, the Queen had stood beside a human and protected him. And for the first time, it wasn't war that filled the skies. It was possibility. The news of Queen Siraxa fighting alongside Captain Jason Hawley spread fast across Earth and through the stars. For the first time, the enemy was not just an enemy. The alien queen had bled for a human. She had risked her life to help stop her own fleet's betrayal. People everywhere on Earth, on the moon, in hidden colonies began to talk not of war, but of change. But peace was not simple. Back in orbit, the Queen's massive fleet waited in silence. Half of her commanders had doubts. They had grown up under fear, trained to conquer, never to trust. Now their queen had not only spared a human but stood beside him. Some admired her strength. Others saw it as weakness. Inside her grand flagship, Siraxa stood tall before a great council of her top generals. Jason stood behind her, watching the crowd of strange, armored aliens whisper and glare. The Queen raised her hand, and silence fell. "I have seen strength. In humans," she said, her voice sharp and clear. "They do not kneel. They rise again and again. I bled beside one of them. He did not break. And I will no longer lead a war built on fear. If you believe in me, stay. If you do not, then leave or fight." The room held its breath. Then one of her highest-ranking generals stepped forward and removed his blade, placing it at her feet. "You are still my queen." More followed. Some bowed, others placed down weapons. But not all. A full third of her forces turned away, breaking formation in orbit, joining the old ways, the path of conquest and control. A new enemy had been born, Sirax's own blood, who now sought to remove her. Jason watched it all unfold. He had seen war between different species, but this was war inside a single empire. He leaned toward her and asked quietly, "Are you sure about this?" She didn't flinch. "Yes, there's no going back." With her loyal fleet now at her side, she sent a message to Earth. Her voice filled the skies and was heard on every channel. "I, Siraxa, Queen of the former Dominion, declare myself an ally of Earth. I will fight for peace between our kinds. And to seal this new path, I announce my bonding to Captain Jason Hawley." Jason nearly choked on his drink. All cameras turned to him. His face went pale. "What?" Siraxa calmly turned to him and said, "You already agreed." "No, I didn't," he protested, eyes wide. "You said something. I made a face, and next thing I knew, we were flying away from missiles." "Then now it is official," she replied with a soft smirk. Jason looked around helplessly. The soldiers nearby didn't know whether to salute him or laugh. Some tried to do both. General Morgan stared at the screen from Earth's war room. Jaw clenched but didn't speak. Others began clapping. Some just shook their heads. All over Earth, debates exploded. Was this real? Could an alien queen and a human captain truly become allies, husband and wife? And yet people couldn't deny the results. She had stopped attacking. She had fought for Earth, and the world hadn't burned since. After long talks between human governments and Sirax's advisors, both sides agreed on a public ceremony. It would be a symbol, more than a marriage, something that could show the galaxy a new future. Jason stood at the center of a massive, open-air platform in New Geneva, surrounded by alien ships floating above and human troops standing guard. His suit was part flight gear, part formal uniform, cleaned and patched. He still had a healing wound from the last battle. Beside him stood Siraxa, glowing in her ceremonial robes, armor laced with silver and crystal, symbols of power and change etched into her shoulders. Together they faced both worlds, one old and broken, one scared but still standing. Reporters hovered in drones, broadcasting live across Earth and to other planets, watching with interest, fear, and curiosity. Jason leaned toward her and whispered, "You're sure this won't make things worse?" She looked at him with a small smile. "You saved my life. I saved yours. This is just the next step." Jason sighed. "You say that like this is normal." "It is," she said, "for me." But before the ceremony could finish, alarm screamed across the sky. Enemy ships appeared, dark and red, falling from hyperspace like thunder. At the head of the attack was a massive black warship, the flagship of Sirax's brother, once loyal, now her greatest threat. His voice echoed through space. "You have betrayed your blood, sister. Now I will take your crown and burn this." Human world to ash, the wedding turned into a battlefield. Troops scrambled. Human and alien ships rose side by side to fight. Jason ran back to Liberty's Edge, yelling over the radio. "We've got incoming, big one. Looks like the ceremony's over." Siraxa stood still for a heartbeat, then her armor shifted. Her robes vanished in a flash of light, replaced with battle gear. Her eyes burned like twin stars. "No, it's just begun." The skies lit with fire. The earth shook with thunder from above. And Jason realized that even if the ceremony didn't finish, something more important had begun. For the first time in history, A human and an alien queen stood together not just in words, but in battle, side by side, against a common enemy. The galaxy was watching, and it would never forget what came next. The sky above Earth turned into a wall of fire as the enemy fleet attacked during the ceremony. Syrax's brother, a powerful warlord who believed in the old Dominion ways, led the charge. His fleet was dark, covered in red lights, and moved like a swarm of angry shadows. The traitor believed Syraxa had weakened the Empire by bonding with a human, and now he had come to destroy her and Earth with her. Jason raced back to Liberty's Edge, his heart pounding, blood still seeping from the wound he had taken days before. He didn't care. There was no time to think. All around the city, alarms screamed. Human and alien guards worked together, rushing civilians to shelters, aiming their weapons at the sky. Jason jumped into the cockpit and took off, flying straight into the heart of the attack. Syraxa followed in her personal warship, leading the half of the Dominion fleet still loyal to her. As she rose into the air, her voice rang out across both human and alien ships, strong and full of fire. The time for fear is over. If you believe in honor, stand with me. Her call was answered. Human pilots flew beside Dominion cruisers, forming strange but powerful squadrons. They had trained separately, spoke different languages, but they now had one mission: defend Earth. The battle that followed was the largest ever seen. Missiles filled the sky like falling stars. Giant ships collided, crashing in fire. Energy beams carved across the atmosphere. On the ground, cities shook as pieces of burning metal fell from orbit. Jason fought with everything he had. Liberty's Edge cut through enemy lines like a spear of blue light. Every turn he made left an explosion behind him. His mind connected to the ship's strange core, guiding it like an extension of his body. But the enemy was strong. Syrax's brother had brought war machines that were never meant to be used on a single planet. They were built to erase whole systems. One of them, a massive dreadnought shaped like a spinning blade, began charging its main weapon. If it fired, Earth's entire orbit would be turned to ash. Jason saw it and flew straight toward it, but even Liberty's Edge couldn't stop it alone. As he neared, his ship's shields began to break. Sparks flew inside the cockpit. He could barely see. Suddenly, Syrax's voice came through his comm. "Jason, fall back. I'll deal with it." "Are you insane?" he shouted. "You'll die. Not if I strike first," she said. And before he could argue, her ship dove in. Syraxa opened all power channels and drove her warship straight into the dreadnought's path. Her weapons tore into its side. The enemy ship turned to fire, but it was too late. She leaped from her ship in a pot of light, flew toward the dreadnought, and landed inside its outer deck. Jason watched in shock as she stood alone on the surface of that massive war machine, glowing with energy, her arms raised. She summoned the ancient power within her blood, something Jason had only seen hints of before. The old core inside her. Armor flared, and a storm of energy burst from her body. It cracked the dreadnought's hull, melted its systems, and caused it to collapse inward. A final explosion ripped through the sky as the enemy ship split into two flaming halves and crashed into the ocean. For a moment, all was silent. Then the tide of battle shifted. The enemy fleet, shocked by the destruction of their strongest weapon, began to fall back. Human and loyal Dominion forces pushed forward, driving them out of orbit. Jason scanned the wreckage for signs of Syrax's life pod. He found it drifting above the Earth, damaged, glowing faintly. He sped toward it, ignoring orders, dodging debris and falling metal. When he reached it, he opened the hatch and pulled her into his arms. She was bruised, her armor cracked, but alive. Her eyes opened slowly, and she smiled weakly. "You didn't let me finish the ceremony," she whispered. Jason held her tighter. We'll finish it when the sky is quiet. They returned to Earth as heroes. The enemy fleet had fled. Sirax's brother had disappeared, wounded and disgraced. Earth stood, damaged but unbeaten. Humanity had not. Only survived the greatest invasion in history. They had helped break the very empire that threatened them. The world watched as Siraxa and Jason stood side by side again, this time without guns or alarms. The sky was calm, lit by the soft glow of sunrise. Leaders from both Earth and the New Dominion gathered to hear Siraxa speak. I stood on this world as a conqueror, she said, but now I stand as a friend. My people have followed war for too long. That time is over. Today, we begin again. Not just with words, but with a bond strong enough to end centuries of blood. She turned to Jason. You once asked what happens if you say yes. Now you see. Jason smiled, holding her hand. Yeah, he said, I see it. Around them, humans and aliens stood together. There were still fears, still doubts, but also hope. Peace had not come through surrender or silence. It had come through fire, bravery, and the strange trust between two warriors who were never supposed to meet. The war had changed them, and now they would change the galaxy. The galaxy had gone quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that came after a storm, not peace. Though Siraxa and Jason had brought Earth and the New Dominion into an alliance, the scars of war were still fresh across planets and hearts. Broken ships drifted in space, cities on Earth still smoldered, and many of Siraxa's former generals now led scattered enemy factions, refusing to accept her new rule. Rumors spread fast. Some said Jason had brainwashed the Queen. Others whispered that Siraxa planned to betray Earth when it was weakest. But despite all of it, they stood firm. Together they traveled from world to world Earth colonies, neutral systems, even broken Dominion sectors, speaking to soldiers, meeting leaders, calming fear, and building trust. Some crowds cheered them, others threw stones. But Jason never flinched. Siraxa never blinked. Every step forward, no matter how hard, helped rebuild what war had nearly destroyed. On one of their visits to a space station near the edge of Dominion space, they met with a group of young commanders, human and alien training together for the first time. They saluted nervously, still unsure how to behave around a queen and a war hero. Jason smiled and told them, "Just don't point your guns at us, and we'll get along fine." That made them laugh. Siraxa watched them closely and whispered to Jason, "They're different. They look at each other like equals, not enemies. That's what we're fighting for," Jason replied. But the fight wasn't over. As news of the Queen's survival and alliance with Earth spread, Sirax's brother, General Valak, regrouped his forces in the outer void. He had taken over an old war world, a fortress planet filled with hidden weapons from past centuries. There, he gathered Dominion loyalists, mercenaries, and those who had lost everything and blamed Siraxa for their pain. His fleet grew larger by the week. When spies brought word of a new superweapon being built deep underground, both Earth and Dominion leaders held emergency meetings. They couldn't wait. If Valak completed the weapon, no alliance would matter. He could destroy entire star systems. Siraxa and Jason stood before the United Command Council, surrounded by advisors and generals. She spoke first. "He will not stop until I am dead. He will never forgive my bond to a human. If we do not strike now, he will finish what the old Dominion started." Jason stood beside her, his voice steady. "We've already won the hearts of people. Now we need to stop the last heart of war." The room fell silent. Then the vote was cast. A joint fleet, Earth's best ships and Dominion loyalists, would launch one final mission. Operation Final Flame. Jason led the assault wing in Liberty's Edge, while Siraxa commanded the main fleet from her flagship. As they approached Valek's war world, they found the space around it crawling with mines, gun stations, and thousands of enemy ships. Valek's voice filled the channel, cold and sharp. "You have lost your crown, sister. You've betrayed our blood for a weak race, and now you will fall with them." Siraxa replied calmly, "You chose fear, I chose hope, and that is why you will lose." The battle began. It was larger than anything before. The sky turned into a storm of metal and fire. Human ships danced through enemy lines, using speed and tactics. Dominion cruisers brought raw power. Jason flew faster than ever, his mind fused, with the core of Liberty's Edge reacting before he could even think. He shot down wave after wave of enemy fighters, but the skies never cleared. There were too many. In the distance, the enemy's superweapon rose from the planet's surface, a massive tower glowing with red light. It charged slowly, its target unknown, but everyone knew it would mean death. Siraxa's flagship was hit hard during the fight. Her shields flickered and fires raged on her deck. Jason heard her voice go quiet over the channel, then crackle back in. "I'm still here," she said, breathless. But not for long. Jason made a choice. He broke formation, pushing Liberty's Edge toward the superweapon alone. He dodged. Cannon fire, missiles, and waves of ships flying through clouds of fire and smoke. On the ground, resistance forces from both sides, humans and aliens, launched a last push to destroy the weapon from below. Jason's ship reached the tower's top just as it began to fire. A massive beam of energy gathered at its tip, aimed at Earth's fleet. Jason looked at the blinking warning lights across his dashboard. His ship was damaged. His weapons were low. He knew what he had to do. He activated the last energy in the core, not to fire, but to overload. "For Earth," he whispered. "For her." Liberty's Edge shot like a missile into the weapon's eye, the ancient core glowing bright blue. Then silence. A blast of white light swallowed the tower, the enemy base, and everything around it. The weapon shattered. Valek's forces were blinded, broken, and began to scatter. Siraxa screamed Jason's name across the comms, but no voice answered. For a moment, all felt lost. But then, through the smoke, a small escape pod drifted out, barely intact. It was Jason, burned, bleeding. But alive, Siraxa's fleet swept in, finishing the battle. The enemy fell. The war was finally over. Later, on Earth, crowds filled the streets as Jason was wheeled out of a med bay, his chest wrapped in bandages, one arm in a sling. Siraxa stood beside him, placing a crown of light over his head, not as a king, but as a hero. No longer just a soldier, no longer just a symbol. A bridge between two worlds. Peace had come. It had taken fire and sacrifice, but it was real. And together, they would build what no one thought possible, a future worth living for.